Zach, do you have me?
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sounds good. We'll start first with Keith Parrish.
Hey, Zach, how are you?
Doing great, Keith. How about yourself?
Doing wonderful. Thanks for asking. What's an update on Jaren Jackson Jr.?
We're in a very good place with Jaren. So Jaren has made significant progress over the last month. There have been indicators that we've looked at to make sure that he's cleared hurdles that he needs to clear to make the next step in his rehab. And he's made significant jumps there over the course of this last month. At this point, he is on track to return in April by the end of the month, and we can't wait to have him out there. But Jaren has made very significant strides, encouraged by the progress that he's made, and we just can't wait to have him back out on the court with us.
Evan Barnes.
Zach, kind of piggybacking off of that, with Jaren, have you guys, at this point, have you been comfortable with the fact that there hasn't been a public timeline and just kind of been, all right with the fact that, as this process dragged out, the lack of a timeline kind of made it difficult to kind of assess maybe where and how he's going, or are you just comfortable with the fact that we trusted what we were going to have in place, meaning you guys, for him?
Yeah, so there's the biggest thing that I would kind of hammer home on that is that there's nothing abnormal about the timeline that Jaren's on. When Jaren first tore his meniscus, there's kind of two routes that you can take with a torn meniscus. You could either do what's called a meniscectomy, where you kind of trim down or shave the meniscus. And if you do that, you could be back, in a couple of months, but at that point you lose the protective function, of a meniscus. Leads to, swelling, soreness, a lot of recurring knee issues, oftentimes over time. What we did with Jaren, with his long-term health in mind, with everyone on the same page of kind of taking the long view, was to repair his meniscus. The surgeon went in. They were thankfully able to repair 100% of his meniscus, but a full repair of a meniscus can oftentimes it can take up to 8 months, 9 months, and there's not there's a wide kind of gap, within where the return date can land for a full repair of a meniscus, as was the case with Jaren. So when I sat down and took questions, kind of on the eve of the season and said, Jaren's going to be out a minute, that obviously wasn't a literal minute, and we knew that Jaren was going to continue to miss some time. We didn't know, it's not like, in a case like Ja, where he had, the ankle sprain, like, how long an ankle sprain, is normally going to take. But, with the significant rehab of this case, especially in a season like this, where, under the COVID protocols, you can't do the same quality rehab work at times when you're on the road. There's a lot of, kind of factors of that nature that makes it a little more difficult to predict with specificity, when there's all of these, kind of loading, metrics that you want to hit in a long-term rehab. So, we're here, I'm here. I can, say confidently that he's making awesome progress. He's coming back. We can't wait to have him, back out there with us next month. That because of the nature of a surgery like this, that we didn't have, that kind of specificity, early on, but that's where we are today.
Drew Hill.
Hey, Zach. Trade deadline came and went yesterday without much news from you guys. As teams sort of see their championship window open up, you sometimes see them get more aggressive in terms of making moves and things of that nature. How will you know when the moment is right for the Memphis Grizzlies to sort of be more aggressive and try to open up that championship window for your group?
So our decision-making MO, as it has been, since I, took the lead of basketball operations here, is that we're going to, make moves with, the goal in mind of competing for championships over time. That was the lens through which we continued to operate at this trade deadline. Obviously, there was not any deal that we did. We had discussions just like every team does, and there wasn't an actionable deal out there that we felt like, increased our chances of winning a championship, competing for championships over time. That's going to continue to be the way in which we operate. But I'm also incredibly encouraged by the growth that we've seen from the team this year, and we're excited to keep working our way through this second half, albeit with a very difficult schedule where we're going to go out and we're trying to win every game that we can.
Peter Edmondson.
Hey, Zach, going back to the Jaren thing for just a second, can you you describe the nature of the collaboration between you guys and your medical staff and Jaren and his family and his representation in terms of deciding how to go about doing this? How does that work? And then when it comes to you guys and in that sort of a timetable, is it difficult to set internally with the player, knowing that, obviously it would be nice for you guys to be able to see what this group looks like actually on the floor with that core that you guys have put together?
Yeah, so I mean, we'll give a ton of credit to Jaren's camp, from his parents to his agent to obviously Jaren himself. When Jaren unfortunately suffered the injury in the bubble, we all communication is just critical here. We spent a lot of time together on the phone. We explored all of the options that were available to us. That communication has continued and has been very, very healthy throughout this entire process. But what the player wants and making sure that the long-term, prioritization of the player has been the driving force. And that's been, the lens through which everyone, has viewed this the entire time is let's make sure that Jaren Jackson Jr., a cornerstone, franchise of the player is going to be positioned to be the best player for the Memphis Grizzlies that he can possibly be over time. And everyone's been on the same page on that throughout, from electing, the approach to do this, this full repair of his meniscus and his rehab, ramping all the way back up, making sure that he's ready to hit the ground running and be healthy and have that be a full and complete recovery, which it's going to be. So they've been fantastic to work with, and I'd give them a ton of credit for taking, the long view on this.
Megan Triplett.
Hey, Zach, if you could evaluate the first half of the season, what did you like, and what's your expectations for the second half?
Yeah, well, looking back on the first half of the season, I think as we've, kind of laid out, I think seeing a lot of, individual and collective growth, in areas that are going to help us compete at the highest levels over time. I mean, that's what we want to see. And I think we've seen really encouraging, progress there. I think that's on the court, and I think that's off the court. I think, one thing I would definitely, call out is Ja Morant's, growth as a leader. I think something that oftentimes gets underlooked maybe in the NBA is just accountability. And I think Ja's self-accountability, Ja's self-awareness, Ja's understanding, calling himself out, when, I need to be better tonight. I need to, Ja sees that, and Ja holds himself accountable to such a high standard. And that's what that's a winning mentality. And when Ja sees that, and Ja's at the heart of, this team and what we're being about, just seeing Ja see that from himself is really nothing short of it's remarkable and makes him the special cornerstone that he is here. So a ton of credit to Ja on that. But I think there's a lot of players where we've seen really meaningful growth. I think De'Anthony Melton, as a shooter, I think we're beyond a point where you could say that's random variance or something to that effect. De'Anthony shot it really well this season. I think he's worked hard and made real growth there. Would draw attention to Kyle Anderson on that as well. Kyle's become, not just an efficient shooter, but a volume shooter, which is really opens up, his, kind of two-way game. Grayson Allen, on ball defense, made real strides there. Jonas and Dylan, passing. Brandon Clark putting the ball on the floor. I think there's real growth we've seen from a lot of guys on the roster, and collectively, the team first mentality that we saw last year has carried over, and I think we've really built on that this year too. So I'm pleased with the individual and the collective growth.
Mark Giannotto.
Hey, Zach. What have been your initial impressions of Justise Winslow through a dozen or so games? And then also, when Jaren does come back, what does that mean for the rotation? I know obviously that's probably Taylor's ultimate call, but how involved is the front office? Because obviously you're evaluating a lot of these pieces for this year and the future.
Yeah, so on Justise, very, very pleased with what we've seen from Justise. For a player to have been off for over 400 actual days of playing an NBA game, and our medical team did an incredible job with Justise, just as they are with Jaren. Both Justise and Jaren were here the entire offseason. These guys, both Jaren and Justise spend a ton of time thinking about what do they put in their body, improving their diets too. Like they've been absolutely locked into to be able to hit the ground running. And I've been pleased with what I've seen from Justise. I think you can see defensively, just an absolute monster on the ball, really good team defender too, super engaged on that end. Offensively, we can see what he is as a playmaker, and the shots are going to continue to start to fall at a higher clip. I mean, we see Justise in practice every day. I've seen him hit 54 free throws in a row. He hits 10 threes in a row in practice all the time. You know, the shot's going to continue to fall, and Justise just needs to keep shooting, and he's going to, which is good. What was your second question, Mark?
Sorry, I was muted. When Jaren comes back, what does that mean for the rotation? Because obviously you already are not playing some guys who are, quality players, and adding Jaren to the mix adds one more to the mix.
Yeah, I really think that our depth this year, especially as we embark on, continue to embark on 40 games in 68 days, I think depth is going to be our strength. If you see, as we have some of these back-to-backs, like there's going to be opportunities, for everyone to play. A lot of these things inevitably, sort themselves out. I just think in this very strange, COVID impacted season where our schedule, from a density perspective is as hard as any schedule in the NBA. I think that depth is going to be our strength. The coaches do an excellent job. We have, great communication with them. Everyone's on the same page. But yeah, the coaches do a great job managing those rotations, and a lot of credit to Taylor on that. It's difficult at times, certainly, to juggle a lot of good basketball players, but I think Taylor's done an excellent job with that.
Sean Coleman.
Zach, how have you been?
Great, Sean. How about yourself?
Doing well. Thank you for asking. In terms of the on-court data accumulation that you had mentioned, before the season started, your overall impressions of the strides that the defense has made, which has really had, good stretches this season. And then, from what you've seen from the offense, and when it comes to future decisions, trades, whatever it may be, where does, shooting, are you narrowing the focus of the needs that you have when it comes to potential additions in the future through this data accumulation? Has it made it easier to focus on the specific areas of improvements that you really think you'll need for this team to take the next step to being a sustainable winner?
Yeah, I mean, I think shooting, in this NBA is absolutely critical. I'm really glad that we were able to add Desmond Bane in this draft. I've been quite pleased with what I've seen from both him and Xavier Tillman. But Desmond is an elite shooter. Grayson has become an elite shooter as well. I think you could never have enough shooting, and certainly, as we continue to work towards being, a team that's really competing at the highest level of the NBA, and we're going to, relentlessly, continue, to work until we get to that point, which we're going to. Shooting is going to, continue to be a big focus without a question.
Anthony Sane. Anthony. We will go.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I'm good. You had spoke about the good part of having depth, and those things are all obvious. There's also a possible backside of it where, if you have so many guys in your rotation who are all capable and ready to play, dealing with the human element of it, what challenges do you guys possibly? How difficult do you think it could be to kind of deal with the personalities of guys when they're not playing many minutes per game or missing games and out of the rotation, in and out of it? How do you deal with those type of difficulties that having a abnormally deep team can come with?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I just kind of start by giving credit to, our guys are incredibly competitive, and everyone wants to be out there, on a given night, of course. And I think that's a testament to who they are and the culture that we've been, kind of focusing on building here. But, how do you manage it? You communicate, you communicate openly, transparently, you be upfront, with guys when there is some of that juggling. There's good players who have had nights out of the rotation, and when there is, the coaches, and front office as well, there's very, direct and honest, communication with the players. I think players, want to know where they stand, want to understand, what's happening, and credit to them for, remaining competitive and just being ready when their number is called on a given night. But communication's key.
Parker Fleming.
Hey, Zach, just with the wing rotation that's in place right now, just what are your thoughts on the current state of it, as well as the flexibility and the versatility of it going forward, and just so many avenues that you can go down with what you have right now on your roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're very pleased with the current wing group. I think we've seen growth from a lot of those players. I think Dylan as a passer is one of the things I'd kind of called out. Grayson, just his overall impact on the game, I think has improved meaningfully this year. Desmond, Des has made real strides. I think the game has slowed down for him a little bit. We can see a little bit more as a playmaker. Getting Justise involved in the rotation. D'Anthony Melton, the strides that he's made. And, the coaches, again, I think they've done a really good job, kind of balancing, that group and making sure that everyone gets the minutes so that they can, continue to develop and continue to help us, go out there and win basketball games.
Mike Wallace.
Hey, Zach, last year, you guys exceeded sort of the external expectations in terms of wins and development. This year, you're on track to do that again. You spoke to the improvements across the roster. When you look at this play-in, playoff format, do you look at that as another barometer to sort of help continue to measure the steady growth of this team this year and what you guys are positioned to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think a very important, part of growth, with the goal of competing for winning championships over time is playing meaningful basketball games. And what I love about how last season played out, where, we participated in the bubble, made it to the play-in game and had a very competitive back and forth game with Portland there. And, this season, as this season goes on, we're going to be playing, in basketball games that matter, playing in games that have something on the line, is critical, for individual and team development. So I'm really excited for our guys to continue to go out and win as many games as we can the rest of the season here.
Chris Harrington, final question.
Yeah, Zach. Gorgui Dieng hasn't appeared in a game for the Grizzlies in nearly a month. Obviously, he was a name that was talked about heading towards the deadline. Does his absence from game action suggest some understanding relative to his future for the Grizzlies now that the deadline has passed?
Yeah, more to come on Gorgui. There will be more updates there.
All right.
Thank you, Zach.
Thanks, everyone.